Thank you for joining us for block number 5. And today I've got to apologize in advance if there's any echo air conditioner sounds in the background. I'm actually camping this weekend and I do have a few dogs in here with me. So if you hear some ruckus, please forgive me. I didn't want to not get the video out, so I thought I'm just going to take the show on the road and take you camping with me. So make sure that you've downloaded the pattern. If you haven't done so, please visit delphioquiltco.com. And under quilt alongs, you'll see the 20,024 summer quilt along. And on that site, I do have instructions that you can print out for each of the 9 blocks. There's 9 blocks total. And I also have information about the fabric and size of the quilt on there too. And I'll link the videos too in case you've missed any of the past blocks. All right, for block number 5, it's got a lot of little pieces. I've got all my pieces already cut out, but here are the pieces that you're going to need. Okay, let's get started. I know this one looks a little complicated because it has so many pieces, and parts of it, I guess, are a little complicated, but I'm going to walk you through step by step how to do this. All right, we're going to start with the very center of the block. And since I've already got my pieces cut and some of these sewn, I'm just going to show you how to do it quick, and then we'll move on to the next section. So this is what the finished pieces are going to look like when we're done sewing them. And they should measure about 2.5 inches square. We are using 2 colors for this first section here. This is our chartreuse color, and this is our pink color. And if you are wondering about the fabric colors I'm using, we do have a chart on our website that shows all of the colors needed for this quilt along. So if you've downloaded the pattern, these first little chartreuse pieces are piece D, and they're 1.5 inches by 2.5 inch rectangles. You need a total of 8 of these. And then we also need these 1.5 inch squares, which is piece O. And these are from the pink color. So basically on all of these little 1.5 inch squares, you're going to want to draw a diagonal line. My air conditioner just kicked in, so hopefully you can't hear that. But I'm just going to use my ruler in this 45-degree mark here, and I'm slightly below the points with my ruler just to allow for the thickness of my fabric pen. And this is a fabric-friendly pen. I would suggest that you use that or a pencil. And if you're sewing this all together, you're going to repeat that for all of these other pink squares as well. So then the next step, we're going to take one of these pink squares, which again is piece O, on top of piece D, and another one on this other piece here. And basically we're going to have 4 sets where that diagonal line is going from the top left to the bottom right, and then 4 sets where it's going from the top right to bottom left. And then we're going to just sew right on this diagonal line. Okay, so I went ahead and I sewed all these little pink triangles on, and then I cut off the excess here. I did try to videotape that, but the camera shut off. So I have these 4 pieces now finished. I'm just going to set those aside for now. All right, now we're going to take pieces G and M and put them right sides together. And then we're going to do a 1/4 inch on the side here. And you do want to make sure that you have a scant 1/4 inch. If you're questioning what your scant 1/4 inch is, maybe just sew a couple test strips first. If you did a 1.5 strip and then you sewed it to another 1.5 inch strip, then when you sewed a scant 1/4 inch, it should measure 2.5 inches when you pressed it open. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and sew this one. Okay, I have this sewn, and then I'm just going to press the seams open. Okay, now that that's pressed, I'm just going to double check and make sure my scant 1/4 inch was okay. Piece should measure 2.5 inches wide. It looks like it does, so I should be good to move forward. All right, now I'm going to subcut this into 4 different pieces, and each piece is going to be 1.5 inches wide. And it may be helpful to have your ruler line right on the seam just to make sure that your ruler is nice and straight. So again, these are going to be 1.5 inches. Okay, now those are done, we're going to take these pieces and we're going to sew them the piece in. If you haven't downloaded the instructions yet, you might want to visit our website to do that because I have all the pieces, the labels, and which fabric I'm using on those instructions. All right, first I'm just going to lay this out just so I have it going the right directions here. And basically the yellow buttercup color here is always going to be in the corner. And then we have our end pieces that are going to go on top for these two here and on bottom for these. And then I'm just going to sew these pieces together. Okay, once you have your pieces sewn together, just press the seams open. I usually like to press seams to one side, but with these little pieces, I find pressing it open just helps these to lie nice and flat. Okay, so let me bring back these first pieces we did. And we can assemble our center block now. And we're going to need for the very center, this is pale pink and it's 2.5 inch square. I'll put that right in the center. And then I'm just going to sew these together. And again, I'm going to press the seams open on this, which I normally don't do that. I just want to keep them nice and flat since these are a lot of little pieces that we're working with. And to sew it, I'm just going to do row by row and then sew the rows together. Okay, here is the finished center piece here. I'm going to make a cute little block just on its own. All right, we're going to move on to the more challenging part of this block. And that is these pieces here. I've already sewn a few of these together, but let me show you how to sew the last one. I think what makes this one tricky is we got a lot going on here. We've got this little triangle here, this piece here, another triangle here, and another triangle here, and then we do the opposite on this side here. But let me show you step by step how to do it. I think once you start it, it's not going to be as bad as maybe it looks. Okay, for this one we're going to start with, we need our 1.5 inch squares of the background fabric, and we're going to draw diagonal lines on the back of each of those. And then we need our buttercup rectangles that are 1.5 inches by 4 inches long. And again, if you're following along with the pattern, these are square B, and these are the pieces H. All right, let me bring this back just to show you how these go. So basically we have a total of 8 sets of these. But 4 of the sets are going to have the diagonal go from right top to bottom left, so it ends up like this. And then the other 4 are going to just be the opposite way, starting at the top left and going to the bottom right. And then we're just going to sew right on the diagonal line there. Okay, so I got my pieces here. And again, I've already sewn all those other pieces, so I just got these few left here. And then I'm going to trim 1/4 inch from the line, and then I'm just going to press the seams to the little triangles. And now we're going to add the white half square triangles. And these are the A pieces of the background fabric. I'm just going to show you what they look like pre-sewn, just so you can kind of see where I'm headed with this. So pretend these are already sewn together. Basically, the 2 diagonals need to be parallel with each other on both of these sets. So then once you have it lined up, you just flip it over. And you're going to line the right angle sides, the 2 sides of this triangle, with the 2 sides that needs to be sewn to. Same with this other side. Just make sure that is nice and lined up. And then we're going to sew 1/4 inch all the way to the end of this triangle here. And the same with this one. right, and that's what it looks like when it's sewn together. Then I'm just going to press the seam towards the triangle. Then we're going to add these two triangles. These are pieces I from the pattern, and these are the colored nectar. And to do this, kind of the same thing. I found it easier to just kind of line it up where I know I need it. And then I'm going to flip it over and align the right angle side with the yellow and white piece from earlier. And then I am going to sew this time though on the diagonal here of piece I. And if you follow piece I, you should be pretty good as long as your right angle sides are nice and lined up here. And you are going to trim these down a little bit, so don't worry if they're not lining up perfectly, because we're going to make them perfect once we trim them down. Right, again, a 1/4 inch right on the diagonal of each of these pieces. That's what they look like when they're sewn together. Okay, and then I'm just going to trim off the excess here before I press it. I'm going to use my ruler, just make sure I get it nice and straight. I want a 1/4 inch from the sewn line. I'm just cutting off those extra pieces. Same with the other side. So these two pieces just need to be cut now, and I'm going to trim them down so they're 3.5 inches square. And I do want to use the 45-degree mark on my ruler just to make sure that I've got corner to corner, and I'm using that mark right on the seam line here. And then I'm going to just trim each pieces so they're 3.5 inches. That's Charlie. I think he sees a squirrel outside or something. Again, I'm just using that 45-degree angle, and I'm going to trim the other two sides. Okay, and I'm going to repeat that with this one. All right, now I'm ready to sew these two together, so I'm just going to line up the seams just so you try to get a nice point here. And then I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch along this side here. And on this one I am pressing the seams open. All right, now we're on to almost the last steps. We're getting closer, I promise. All right, so what I have here now, I've got 4 of these nectar colors in 1.5 inch by 2.5 inches, and then 4 of the same color in 1.5 inch by 3.5 inches. And this is piece K from the pattern and piece L from the pattern. And basically to sew these ones together, we're going to do 2 each of top left corner to bottom right corner right on the diagonal line, and then 2 each of top right corner to bottom left corner, and repeat that with piece L here as well. All right, I'm going to finish sewing these few that I have left, and then we'll move on. All right, now that I've got these all sewn, I'm just going to trim 1/4 inch. Make sure you got the right trimming piece here so you don't ruin your little piece here. And then we'll be ready to press these little ones. And to press these, I'm just pressing towards the little triangle. All right, now we're going to take pieces C and E, and these are 1.5 inch by 12 inch strips, and right sides together. We are going to sew a 1/4 inch along the long side here. And again, I did use a scant 1/4 inch. And I am going to press my seams open on this one as well. All right, now we are going to cut this into 1.5 inch sections. And again, just make sure you're lined up with that seam nicely. And we should get 8 total of these sections. And now we're going to sew these together. You want them to be opposite each other, the colors, the green from the white. And we're going to just sew them together like that. All right, so I've got these sewn together, and now I'm just going to press those seams open again. Okay, now we just need to bring back these pieces from earlier. And this one, I encourage you to use the chart just to make sure you get these in the right place. I'll stick that up there now. Okay, now that I've got these lined up, I'm going to first sew the smaller pieces on, and then I'm going to press the seams open, and then sew these larger pieces on. And then we'll be ready to assemble the block. Okay, now I got all the pieces put together, and I'm ready to sew the block together. Basically, I'm just going to do this in rows, and then put it together, and I'll come back and show you the finished block. And there we have the finished block. This one was the hardest one so far. Actually, I think it's going to be the hardest one in the series. So if you stuck through it, nice job. And we're also over halfway through. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate you coming. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe and visit us at delphiaquiltco.com. Have a wonderful day.